Hi guys, this is chapter 10, Dynamic User Interface. So far, we've learned to create apps that have user interface um, that don't change, static user interface. So once the app launches, the user interface stays the same. But the ones that we're learning here, okay, we're going to learn to create an app where user interface responds to functions, what happens in the server function, okay? Dynamic UI. So there are three techniques that we're learning here. So updating inputs. So updating inputs, we're using code to modify the existing inputs after the app launches, right? The second, dynamic visibility, uses tab set panel function. So the app actually has multiple tab sets, and we are going to select which tab set to show. All right. And the third one, creating UI with code. This one's useful when the types and numbers of inputs vary depending on other inputs. All right. So here's a summary. So update inputs. So if you look on the right side, so this is a very simple example here. So there are two inputs at the top, two numeric inputs, right? Minimum and maximum. And minimum value down below in the slider input, right? Minimum value is 0, maximum value is 3, and initial value is 1. Now, so look in the middle, when you change the maximum value to 4, the slider input down below updates to 4, right? The same thing on the far right. When the user selects -1 for the minimum, the slider input down below updates to that minimum value, new minimum value, right? So that's a very simple example. Um, the code, it's very systematic here. So on the user interface side, you would have whatever input function you have, right? Text input, numeric input, select input, they all have a matching update um, input function. So if it's a text input function in the UI, on the server side, you have a update text input, right? And you will use that function in conjunction with observe event function. So again, observe event function, what it does is, when there's an event, execute this function here, right? So this is the format. Now, dynamic visibility, that the one that utilizes tab set function. So look on the right side. So at the top, we have a select input function. So user selects different types of distribution. So on the far left, we have a normal distribution, and then uniform distribution in the middle, and then on the far right, we have exponential distribution. So depending on the user's choice, one of the three, right? The types of inputs and the output changes, right? So for example, for the uniform distribution, the app shows number of samples, right? So that's what numeric input function and minimum and maximum. So there will be three numeric inputs. On the far right, exponential distribution, then there will be only two numeric inputs, right? Um, so this can be done. This can be done using this tab set panel, dynamic visibility technique. So the code that we need is tab set panel function in the UI, and in the server function, we would use update tab set panel in conjunction with observe event. Again, when this event happens, execute this update tab set panel function. So this is a way to select a panel from multiple tab sets, right? Select to show a tab set from multiple tab sets, right? So the app actually has, in this case, there's three tab sets, right? But with update tab set panel, um, you know, we can select one of the three. Now, the last technique here is create UI with code. So here's an example, right? So depending on other inputs, so other inputs here, so there are two different apps, two different cases. The one at the top, it's a case of different types of inputs. So so types of inputs vary depending on other inputs. The example down below, um, the numbers of inputs vary depending on other inputs. So if you look at the one at the top, so we have label, so that's text input, and then the second one is select input, right? So um, we have a slider and numeric type. So if the user selects a slider, then the slider input, slider input shows up, and if the user selects a numeric, then numeric input shows up. So different types of input depending on this other input, right? Type of inputs. And down below here, the number of inputs varies, right? If the user selects 5, 3, so this is obviously numeric input. So depending on what the user chooses for the numeric inputs, right, we get different numbers of inputs showing up here. All right, so that is the introduction for this chapter 10, and we'll talk about individual cases in the following videos. See you in the next video.